The Jaguars have signed wide receiver Jake Bobo from the Seattle Seahawks, a restricted free agent, and Seattle has 5 days until March 25th to match the Jaguars' offer. We'll give you all the updates here. So, as most people were watching college basketball, I think, on this Friday afternoon, James Gladstone and the Jaguars front office made a little bit of a surprising move, not a risky move, but an aggressive move to go out and sign restricted free agent Jake Bobo from the Seattle Seahawks. Their contract details are currently not out yet, but he was a restricted free agent. He was undrafted. He's 28 years old, and the tender offer that the Seahawks gave him was 3.25 million. And so the expectation, like what I'm seeing on Twitter, is that the Jaguars offer most likely has a lot of guaranteed money, which will push up his cap hit a little bit in 2026, which ideally will make it harder for the Seahawks to match the Jaguars offer. So I think from what I read, it doesn't sound like Seattle will match the offer, but they do have 5 days. They have until March 25th. So we won't know for sure if Jake Bobo will be playing in Jacksonville next season until March 25th. But as of right now, I think Twitter sounds pretty optimistic. And if Seattle doesn't match, we'll talk a little bit about what Jake Bobo will mean to the Jaguars offense and kind of like where he will fit in. And so, right, like when you pull up Jake Bobo's stats from the last couple of years, right, he's not a guy who's going to break the game open or be a humongous factor in the passing offense. He had 2 receptions last year, but I think when you think about Jake Bobo, I think you want to think about Tim Patrick, right? Tim Patrick was a guy that Jags traded for right before the start of last season with Detroit. I think they gave up a 5th or 6th round pick. And while Tim Patrick, he didn't have a ton of production from stat perspective, he did happen to have 3 touchdowns in the regular season. And they did go to him a bit in that Buffalo game in the playoffs, right? He's a veteran guy who had a big frame who the Jaguars could kind of count on to play certain roles. Maybe, obviously, he's not the go-to receiver, but he's a guy who the offense could trust to plug in at multiple different spots in the offense at receiver and fill the role as expected. And when you think about Jake Bobo, I think that's kind of what the Jaguars are looking here to do here, get a little bit younger. Jake Bobo's 20, he'll be 28 years old, I believe, at the start of next season. But a very similar frame to Tim Patrick, right? 6'5 versus 6'4, 210 versus 207. And so, right, I think you expect Jake Bobo to come into Jacksonville and be kind of that veteran presence in the wide receiver room because, right, like the top 3 wide receiver positions are pretty much on lockdown for the Jags, assuming nothing gets injured and that the BTJ trade rumors are bogus, right? You have BTJ, Jacoby Myers, and Parker Washington. Maybe not in that order, right? Especially how the year played out last year. BTJ might be 3rd in that equation, right? But those 3 guys are going to be your starting your 3 main receivers for the Jags. And then also you got the question about Travis Hunter, right? Like I think we all expect, and I think again this signing also is going to add to that speculation, is that Travis Hunter is going to focus primarily on defense for this team next year, right? You see the way the roster is built, and it's pretty clear the Jags have a hole at cornerback 1, and that hole is going to need to be filled by Travis Hunter. But I think what this signing of a player like Jake Bobo does is, right, like Travis Hunter can come in occasionally to play some specific roles at wide receiver, especially if, right, like it's the NFL, right? Like Brian Thomas, Parker Washington, Jacoby Myers miss some time. Maybe Travis Hunter steps in a little bit more on offense. and plays part of that role, and then Jake Bobo comes in to complete that role, right? Because I think it's very clear that in 2026, Travis Hunter is not going to be an every down player for the Jaguars at wide receiver. And I think, again, this Jake Bobo signing kind of cements that. But Jake Bobo is the type of player who you could plug in and out. He's used to coming in and out of the lineup. He's not, an every down player. He's a guy who Travis Hunter could come in for a few snaps on offense to play his position, especially if they're looking to target that position on a particular play or a particular drive. And so, right, I think that's something else we want to think about here. But overall, right, like I don't expect this to be a ton of money for a guy like Jake Bobo. It shouldn't cost the Jaguars any picks, despite the fact that he's a restricted free agent. He was undrafted, and it was the lowest level of tender. So really, Seattle only tendered him to get that opportunity to match, which they do still have. So don't order your Jake Bobo jerseys just yet. The Seahawks have till March 25th to sign Jake Bobo to match the Jaguars' offer. And once we have that offer, I will post the full contract details here in the comments below. But let me know what you guys think about the Jake Bobo signing. Are you hoping that Seattle doesn't match, so he becomes a Jag? And how do you expect him to fit into the Jaguars offense? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for listening, and hope you like and subscribe. And we'll keep you all up to date on any Jaguars news as it happens. Have a great weekend, everyone.